Hello everybody, welcome to a new video of City Skylines 2. In this episode, I'm gonna share some tips and strategies on how to build a better public transportation. We are gonna cover buses, taxis, trams, and subways, the four ways of inside city transportation. Which one is better for your city? What do they each do better than the others? And problems like budget control, etc. Now, let's get started. Actually, there is no best way for your inside city transportation. All four of them each serve different purposes. And we are gonna talk about the buses and taxis first. They are the first you can unlock, and they are the most versatile ones. Their stops and lines don't need large spaces, and there is basically no restriction when you plan bus lines. Not like trams and subways. Their stops can be placed pretty close to one another, making it easy to cover every corner of every neighborhood, and it's not really as expensive as it looks, because the stops don't have upkeep. You only need to pay for the upkeep of bus depots, which is where the buses get maintained and sent from. There is no upkeep for the stops and lines, and it's the same for taxis. And, like I said in the residential city video, the sheltered bus stops are a huge boost to the comfort of nearby areas, and that attracts a huge number of new population. You can see here that whenever I place a sheltered stop, a large area gets boosted, and I placed a lot of them. So, even if you are not gonna plan lines in an area soon, it's still a good idea to cover the whole region with sheltered stops as soon as you can. But I do suggest you plan bus lines soon, because that can significantly reduce the number of vehicles on your roads, and thus lower the traffic burden. The taxis don't lower the traffic burden, but it's still a good idea to build them side by side with your buses, because no matter how well you plan your bus lines, there will always be some niche demands you can't fulfill, and that's where you need the taxis. And the taxis save parking spaces, because they are parked inside the taxi depots. And as for the number of vehicles on the roads, if you have planned your bus lines well enough, only a very small amount of riders would use taxis. So you just need to keep a very few depots, but get a lot of comfort boost by doing that. My first tip is to place bus stops at every intersection, so that the riders can easily transfer to an intersecting line, further boosting your bus system's coverage of rider routes. But don't place the stop right at the corner, because that will result in some bugs when you add a new road to an intersection or when you add green belts. It's the same logic when it goes to taxis and trams. Many of my intersections are busy transfer hubs for many lines of different ways. And other than at the intersections, I place bus stops every 250 meters. Though technically, you can place bus stops way denser than that. I don't want my buses to spend that much time stopping and waiting. My citizens won't get anywhere efficiently with buses stopping that much. So I think 250 meters is a rather balanced plan. I mean, traveling for 125 meters to a stop is not hard, right? And as for the taxi stops, it's easy. I place a taxi stop right beside every bus stop. And that's it. Free versatility with no further upkeep. Well-planned bus lines not only help your citizens travel, but also cost less to maintain, and they are easier to manage and diagnose. So, how to plan better lines? If you want a good bus system, first, you need a good road system. And I have another video talking about how to design your road hierarchy into 3 tiers. Here, I'll talk about the line planning based on that. First, you should plan lines on the Tier 1 roads, the arteries, to ensure quick travel across districts and across long distances. And then, you should plan lines on the Tier 2 roads, the major roads, in each individual district, to increase the accessibility within the districts and connect them to the arteries. By completing this level, you will form a clear idea of where to put the depots to ensure buses can be conveniently sent to every district. And finally, plan lines to cover the Tier 3 minor roads and any area not covered, still within individual districts. These lines can be very winding, because their purpose is coverage, not efficiency. The overall logic for all the lines is to cover the most routes with the least lines. That's because we want to lower the upkeep. And let me explain the monthly cost of a bus system. You don't pay to keep a line or a stop. You pay to keep the bus storage in the depots. The depots will automatically send more buses to a line if the line's demand is not fulfilled. And they will send at least one bus to each line, even if nobody uses it. So, you want to limit the number of lines so that there are not too many trivial lines wasting resources. This is the same when it comes to trams and subways. When it comes to the number of riders, trams are way more efficient than buses. So, you get to transport more riders with fewer vehicles if you replace buses with trams. But you also endure a larger waste of money if you use them to cover some routes that are not much used. My suggestion is to replace the heavily used bus lines with trams. You can open the bus line detail panel and sort the lines by how many passengers they have. You can check where this line is by doing this. And then you know on which roads you should build tram tracks. After replacing the bus line, you can deactivate the bus line to make sure nobody somehow chooses to use the less efficient way and to liberate the occupied resources. But keep the bus stops where they are, even if no lines use them anymore, because they still provide comfort to the region. And talking about building tram tracks on existing roads, there are two different situations. If you build tracks on a road without a divider in the middle, you get a shared lane for trams and other vehicles. But if you build tracks on a road that has a divider, you make one lane exclusive for trams. So you get tram lines not interrupted by other traffic except for at the intersections. But on the other hand, you sacrifice the one lane for the other vehicles, which may cause traffic jams for them if you have a lot of them on that road. Okay, aside from replacing buses, what really makes trams great is that they can completely bypass your road traffic by using elevated tracks. This gives your residents a really fast way to travel long distances. So it's a good idea to leave some room when you plan your grids so that you can build things like this in the future. But when it comes to the elevated tracks, it's harder to build technically because there are currently no things like a roadside elevator for your citizens to get onto the tracks, nor are there things like tram stations. As a result, you need to build a boarding track to connect your road to the tracks, and place the tram stops here. And this creates an intersection, so don't build them in the middle of a road. I use the T-sections to build them. And these boarding tracks makes your trams spend more time at every stop, so it's not a good idea to create stops too dense for your elevated lines. They are only for traveling across long distances. Hope they can do some upgrades to the game, like providing tram stations. Okay, besides this, the third thing great about the trams is that you can build tracks on the pedestrian-only roads. So, if you have created some areas not to be bordered by road vehicles, you can still use trams to make them connective. When it comes to the number of riders, subways are even more efficient than trams, and they have stations easier to install than the trams. The underground station takes up almost no space, and you can upgrade it to have restaurants, increasing the comfort of nearby areas. A problem with it is that the station can only be built on one side of the road. So, if your subway station is not placed at an intersection, you need to use the pavement to create a crosswalk for pedestrians on the other side of the road. And although the station takes only a small space, the subway tracks need way larger spaces to arrange, especially if you are building a city on islands and need to arrange subway lines across the water. You will need a long distance for the track to rise, so you can't really place them very densely. As a result, the subway is usually limited to quick traveling across longer distances. But whenever they can be built, they do their jobs great. There is not really that much to talk about the subway, except that their depot is very big and very loud, and you need even more space on each end to plan the tracks. So, usually, you need to find a place outside your city to build it. Okay, these are my tips for public transportation. Hope you find these tips useful, And happy playing, happy designing. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.